Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is your girl, Madam President, and I am so glad to have you all with me this morning. It is Wednesday, May 21st. You know, we do this daily. Let me play my theme song real quick. You know that woo gets me right where I need to be every single day. I am grateful, so much gratitude. I have a special today. But before I get into my special guest, which I am have a lot of gratitude to have a good brother on the show first and foremost. And can we just say that it's a blessing, good Black men doing the thing, not just talking about it, but living it up. This is all just, we just celebrated the Malcolm X 100th birthday, so these are the kind of people that live the legacy of Malcolm X, the people that says, you know what, take their lives seriously. Y'all know how I feel. I'm very sensitive. I wish Black folks would take their lives more seriously most times. Sometimes we have the tendency to, you know, um, just beat the vibes, on the wave. And it's just like, no, everything was intentional about America. America is intentionally doing the things that she's doing. There is intention. There is intention behind mass incarceration. There is intention behind, hoism, what was currently the culture of being a hoe. There is intention behind it. And I don't want to give you all to go there with you too much on this Wednesday. So let me just say a really quick prayer before I go a step further. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for waking us up today. We appreciate you. We love you. Thank you for giving us the gift of life. Thank you for giving us the gift of breath. We ask for your patience. We ask for your protection as we go to and from. You know the needs of all of your people. In your name we pray. Amen. All right. Before I bring my guest, Dave Anderson, the business bully, to the stage, let me just tell you a little bit about who he is. Before I do that, y'all do me a favor and put the business bully in the chat. Let Dave know that we are an active group of people, that we are excited to have him here. Put the business bully in the chat. Put the business in the chat. Put the business bully in the chat. All right. That's just number one. So here's what I'm going to tell you. Dave Anderson is the unapologetic voice entrepreneurs didn't know they needed, but can't afford to ignore. A 22-time best-selling author, award-winning business coach, former radio exec, and stand-up comedian. Dave fuses street smarts with boardroom strategy to help real people build real businesses without fluff, fraud. Come on now. Somebody put no fraud in the chat. A broadcast veteran who cut his teeth at iHeart, Urban One, and Comcast. Dave has trained over 100,000 entrepreneurs and helped generate over 1.3 billion in client revenue. His clients don't chase likes. They cash checks. Come on now. I love this. Dave's no BS approach has made him a sought after speaker, media personality, and the go-to coach for entrepreneurs tired of being lied to. When he's not helping people scale to 6 and 7 figures and roasting fake gurus online, Dave is a proud husband, father, theologian, and autism advocate who reads 2 books a day and drops more knowledge before breakfast than most experts do in a month. Somebody say this man do the work. Can we put work in the chat? He does the work. I'm embarrassed. If you're ready for facts over feelings, strategy over slogans, and legacy over likes, Dave Anderson is your guy. Hold on really quickly. Can you please give my brother brother, Dave Anderson, round of applause. Please give him. A round of applause, a round of applause. One more.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Dave, the business bully. We're so glad to have you this morning. I really appreciate you. Most of all, folks need to know that you're not playing, and you dropped a new book, yes. The Black Agenda, the real Black agenda, which is one of the reasons first of all, I've seen you online on multiple occasions chewing people up, number one, and then two, it was like you had viral clips floating around the internet. I mean, reaching millions of views. I was like, oh my God, brother, you was just cutting it to it was just like no chaser. Come on now, straight.
Yeah. No, I'm very straight. There is no chaser. On behalf of my wife and I want to thank you for that wonderful introduction. Let you know your check is in the mail. I'm a big believer in, if you tell the truth, you don't have to have a very, good memory. And Black people have been lied to, at the expense of our culture, our finances, our health, and our lifestyle, for the better part of 400 years. And quite frankly, you can't pay me enough to sell out my own people, but there are plenty of people who you can. And somebody's got to say, hey, listen, I know this person's telling you they're wearing new clothes, but they butt ass naked and they're taking you with them.
Oh, okay. And you know what, Dave? Something that I realized too is that look at the numbers, we're being sold out for very cheap. When I look at the numbers, woo, I mean, when we just talk about just numerically, and you a numbers guy, you're a very not just intelligent, but intellectual, genius mind. So when we just look at the numbers, we look at athletes and we say, well, this athlete got a $50 million contract. And let's just say somebody like a Deion Sanders' son, he got a $4 million contract. But I think that what I'm always talking about is the unity that puts a system in place where we own the fields. They're running for us. Now, mind you, I think it was Drake who says, I got a sneaker deal and I ain't even break a sweat.
Right.
Can I get that? That's what I want.
Yeah.
I want that kind of the mind, but people don't understand. I keep telling a lot of Black folks, and I hate to give you all your morning nutrition, but I'm going to give it to you just the way it needs to be. I keep telling a lot of Black folks, we don't understand the kind of unity that's required. They had a lot of unity against Black people to establish the organizations that they have today. It wasn't just the white man, it was the white woman. She was on board. It was the white children. They were on board. My mama said, I can't play with you. My daddy said, I can't marry you. That's how it goes. But,
right.
People on fighting the 50-50, people on getting online talking about 50-50. We don't understand. You never build a society without togetherness.
Right. No, I think it's very important, Madam President, that we understand in the Bible that Black people love so much. Proverbs 4:7 says, in all thy getting, get an understanding. Right. So if we are just coming off of the 100th anniversary of Malcolm X's birthday, one of the most prevalent messages he ever gave Black people was that the mother is the Black child's first teacher. And the message that mother gives that teacher, that child takes out into the world. One of the things that I love about my mother is she's 78 years old. She was really big on nepotism. Now, keep in mind, my mother was a teacher. My mother was a salon owner, entrepreneur. And, I always saw people, especially, my generation, so Gen X on down, talk about, I don't want my mama's house, this, that, and the third. Why? If it wasn't for my mama's house, I would not have built my business. This is my mother's house. And her other properties, when she passes, and I hope she continues to have a very, very long life, they all come to me and my children. You
Mm,
know, my wife is the executor of my mother's will. Like,
mm,
nepotism is something, this whole idea of we shouldn't be in our kid's shadow. You don't hear Paris Hilton rejecting her last name, but every time I turn around, and this is not just indicative of sisters, but I see it more with sisters than I do with my brothers. It's, you know, I'm Michelle LaShawn. What's your last name? Oh no, you don't want to use that because you're playing for your first name. That is egocentric, that is ego driven, it's divisive. On top of that, we start rewarding systems where we don't realize that family and marriage in and of itself is less about just love and fairy tales and good feelings and vibes, and it's also as much about business, because
mhm.
it's the merger of two families. And once you understand that, then we can move in a different direction. But we don't have those types of conversations because we look at it as, oh, I don't want to sit around and be stuck with a ball and chain. And I don't need no man for nothing. I'm educated. Bobo, I, I got degrees everywhere. I got more degrees than the hold on one second. Let me show you something. Hold on. Look,
Okay.
I got one sitting in the drawer right now. I don't even have it in a frame.
Hey, from
You
me,
want it, you can have it. Like,
University.
yeah. And don't get me wrong. I worked hard, but I don't hang my hat on a piece of parchment that cost them $3 at Staples or Office Max. We got to start moving differently, and none of us are willing to have that conversation because it hurts our feelings, and we're triggered, and we have our traumas. Guess what? I would rather, and I had this conversation with my wife when it came to our oldest child years ago, and I said, as a father, there are two places a father is going to send his daughter. It's either the pole or the couch. I'm always aiming for the couch.
Mm,
That's it. I would rather be the bad guy in your story. Listen, I'm Batman. I'm whoever Gotham needs me to be. And by Gotham, I mean my children. And if
mm-hmm,
that means I got to be the villain in order for you to go out here and thrive, sign me up. We want
mm.
to be friends with our kids instead of setting our kids up for success. We want to tell them, yeah, you can be everything that you can be, but then we're ready to kick them out at 18 years old. Like,
Where did we get that from?
we got that from the palm colored controlled media that has
Mm-hmm,
continued to colonize our minds and tell us that we don't need each other. Everybody else. Here's one thing, and I'm sure Dr. Boyce would agree with me. I haven't had the pleasure of speaking with him, but I'm pretty sure he would co-sign this. In every major city, I've lived in 19 states and I've lived in 34 cities. In
mm.
every major city I've ever lived in, there is a little Italy, there is a deli district, there is a diamond district. In every city, I have seen a Koreatown, a Chinatown. Where's the place for black people? Oh, wait, that's the ghetto.
Mm.
There,
And guess
there's
what? They don't want you over there. Don't go over there. That's
no,
when you gonna get knocked out.
yeah, that's
That-
it. You don't want to go nowhere near there. And the other thing of it is, we're automatically conditioned that something black and something black owned and operator is automatically inferior. But here's my question: you have no problem going to Target, and we can talk about boycotts and all that later, and I got a whole lot to say about that. But you have no problem going to Target and getting your stuff, whether it's groceries or clothes or supplies or electronics, and then standing in line, waiting in line, as if you're wearing an ugly red polo and some sensible cotton Dockers and checking your own self out. You got no problem with that. But let somebody at a black owned soul food joint forget the fork or not give you enough hot sauce. Oh, you on Reddit, you are on Yelp. Oh, this is why I don't mess with black business. That's why I can't support black business. I have never
exactly.
anybody Jewish say that's why I cannot support kosher businesses.
They will never. In fact, I have a Jewish friend. We're pretty close.
Mhm.
She's many years older than me. I want to say she's probably 70. She doesn't look like it. And she still plays tennis, believe it or not. And
Mm.
I met her on a job, and she was smitten by me because I had a pretty good personality, and I always showed up to work,
Mhm.
and worked and
Mhm.
worked and worked. So she even talked about going into business with me one time, and this was
Mhm.
so interesting, Dave, because this was when I will never forget. I grew up in an urban community. I grew up in a black neighborhood, black high school, went to an
Sure.
HBCU college. So I did not have a very diverse cultural background, right?
Mhm.
Something that God had told me, if you ever want to travel the world, it would be through my people. It would be through humanity. It would be through human beings. And I love God for that. So I would
Mhm.
never forget talking to her, and she was talking about business. And I said, well, how do you feel if your daughter married a man? She said she can marry whoever she wants as long as he's Jewish. That's what she said. Dave, she didn't care about hurting my feelings. She didn't care about what I thought about her at the end of the day.
Mhm.
She didn't care.
Mhm.
My,
No.
my family is the stance I have on my family is not under the contingency of how you feel about me.
Yes. Absolutely. And I'm gonna tell you something. I'm gonna tell you something else. I think the most political thing you can do is marry black.
Mm,
I'm sorry, and procreate black, and that is nothing against any. I got plenty of mixed race cousins. I got mixed race nieces and nephews. I ain't gonna hold you. However, when I look at my chocolate babies, and they
mhm,
got my smile, and they got my unapologetic sense of communication, I
mhm.
get tickled. And three out of four of the people who share my name have locks down their back.
Wow.
That's
Mhm,
it, and that's all. I think it is very important that we stop running from our blackness. You know what I'm saying? And then I'm not disparaging
absolutely.
light skinned people. I'm not. I feel that black is black. But what I'm saying for me, and as for me in my house, yet another thing, I think that
Mhm,
the when you understand that right now, um, black women carry the mitochondrial Eve gene, which means every other nation comes from your womb. That's
mhm,
point number one. Point number two, there are supposedly over 75,000 black women who have gone missing. When you understand that Planned Parenthood was started by Margaret Sanger, who was a eugenicist, and you also understand that that is not there to be benevolent in our so-called communities, that we don't control or own anything other than our rights to say we can have food deserts, more expensive gasoline prices, and no banks that are owned by us, no police department run by us, no schools that are operated by a curriculum that we oversee. You also understand that we have put ourselves in a position where we're last in our own vibes, in our own making. And so for us to not get to the place where we're in charge of every single aspect of blackness is problematic. And that's why we have so many problems. Did I just break the internet? Did I do that? Are we here? Is this thing on? Uh-oh. Am I frozen? I know I paid. Uh-oh. I'm here. Madam President should be here any minute now. I'm a broadcast professional, so we're gonna go ahead and rock this situation. But black people, we definitely need a healing, and we need to be okay with loving on ourselves, with building with ourselves, with putting ourselves in positions to win. If you got questions, you can certainly answer them. I love being very pro-black. I know there are black businesses who say, oh well, I don't tell people that it's a black owned business, and I don't tell people that
Dave, I'm so sorry. I completely got locked out.
Mm.
My Wi-Fi, we had a storm here in Georgia last night.
That's what
And
I said. I just said that. I said it's probably the storm.
it was a massive storm. I mean, like, I'm from the inner city of Chicago. So let me just say that I've had some storms. But last night, I've never seen so much lightning, I don't think, in my life. It was crazy lightning. All that to
Mm.
say, I'm sorry. That's what's been knocking out everything. But I'm going to pick up right where we left off. I'm going to get us connected back into Instagram too. And we're going
Yes,
to
sir.
just go right back in. And I apologize about
Not a
that.
problem. Not a
Okay.
problem.
I just want you to know I appreciate you and I appreciate your time.
Oh
And
no.
appreciate
The good news is, Madam President, I don't have a job. So we can take as much time as we need to.
I
Listen,
appreciate you on
I
that
am
too.
about the real black agenda. And they gonna
Exactly.
get this work.
Exactly. Also, everybody who's in, thank you for being patient. Thank you for staying in. There was some difficulty, some delays, and we had about 150 people in the room, and we've gotten down to about 10 people. Let everybody know that we're back up and running, guys. So if you want to let your friends know and the people that was once in, let them know that we are back up and running. I see we back to 150 people.
Let's
Thank you so much.
go.
Yeah, thank you so much for tuning back in. We appreciate that. All right, guys, I want you all to know I'm here with Dave Anderson, the business bully. He here to get you right. He was spitting that knowledge before the Wi-Fi tried to take us out, but we're back and we rolling. And I
Yeah,
appreciate that, Dave. I'm going to get into the book because
yeah.
I feel like me and you, we the type we can go all day, like you say, ain't no job.
I got no job. That's it.
It's something that it's about 5 things that you had that I saw from the book, and something that really stuck out to me was black culture has been stolen and weaponized.
Mhm.
Oh my God, I agree with you, and I'm gonna let you tap into that. And I want to say I agree with you because when I think about some of the most popular women in hip hop,
Mhm.
how to be a popular woman in hip hop, you
Mhm.
have to, be naked and nudity and
Yeah.
sexualized. And what makes me sensitive to that, like I always say, anybody who follow me, they know for a fact that I'm very consistent in my speech. And that means that if they are producers of the music, if their daughters are the ones who are account managers, if their daughters are the ones who are a part of the marketing, then why my daughter got to be the hoe? Why she got to be the one standing on the table that's naked and nude? No, no, thank you. If she got the ability to be, something in the music industry, why can't her talent stand alone enough? Which it can. But
Mhm.
once they create a culture of weaponizing our own gifts and talents,
Mhm.
then all of a sudden you gotta be the menage a trois and all the over sexualized.
Mhm.
So it's just like, I don't like that. So tell me more about that you mentioned in your book.
Yeah, I think it's very important that people understand that we don't own anything. There's no such thing as a black-owned record company, and there has not been for years. So,
Mm,
like, that's just point number one. Now, I know there's somebody in the cabinet, like, well, before Diddy went up, we had Bad Boy. No, Bad Boy was a label. Bad
mm,
Boy was a label, right? It was distributed by Arista and then distributed by Interscope. Well, what about No Limit? No Limit is a label that was distributed by Universal, right? I could do this all day. Motown and I think Luke Records were probably the last record company, meaning that they had everything in-house, means of production, the whole nine, distribution, this, that, and the third. And Motown diminished itself into a label. Then Motown basically started doing all this stuff. And what happened is in 1992, right around the time when the LA riots happened and Rodney King and Reginald Denny and all that started to happen, the number one record was Fight the Power. Black people was out in the streets starting giving people, the spirit of Ogun, hitting them with that bop bop. Like we wasn't playing no games. There was like if you've ever seen Star Wars, they always talk about this balance in the force. There is light and there is dark. Well, we have gone so far into the dark side that we reject light automatically. And
mm,
so what happens is the reason that your daughter is not told to be, the head of A&R or the creative director is because 9 times out of 10 it's Stacey Rabinowitz or Leo Corin's daughter or Jimmy I. How is it that Jimmy Iovine owned more and made more money off of Beats by Dre than Dr. Dre did? Like, at what point don't we realize that we have been taught really well for as long as you can go through recorded Black American history to be the performers and not the owners? That's why they have so much pushback for LeBron James's team. And I'm not talking about the Lakers. I'm talking about his team behind the scenes, because those are the brothers he came up with, right? That's why they had so much. There's this one, I never remember his name. I'm a football fan, but if you're not on the Philadelphia Eagles, I don't know your name. But there's this one young man whose mother is his agent, and she was advocating for him. Oh, they diminished that automatically because the majority of people who are in control are palm colored, and they wear yarmulkes on Friday. And when I say that, keep in mind, I am one of, and this is going back some years, but I was the first president of the National Conference of Christians and Jews. So when I say that, I'm not saying that from a hateful place at all. I speak facts. The other thing of it is Floyd Mayweather broke up the mob, and Floyd Mayweather broke up the Jewish power structure in the boxing ring. And I'm not talking about the actual ring. I'm talking about the arenas, the marketing, the promotion. Because before Mayweather Promotions, the way things were done was you had to go through one of them. You were either going through the mob or you were going through that power structure that, by and large, happened to be Jewish, statistically speaking. I got to be very careful in what I say and how I say it. But Floyd Mayweather created not only a villain, WWE style, for you to hate, because villains pack in more than heroes. He learned that from Muhammad Ali, but he also structured his deals where, number one, he had a stable of boxers, so the undercard was his. If you were to fight in the MGM Grand when Mayweather Promotions is running, you can't get a hot dog in the MGM Grand without Floyd Mayweather getting a piece of it. Plus, he created the format now that you see all of these sports do, where it's this behind the scenes, close up reality show countdown to a fight situation where there are episodes. And they're all narrated by Liev Schreiber, who famously played in the X-Men franchise as Sabretooth. You have these things set up where it's cinematic, and he's selling the fight the whole time. They didn't like that. So whenever you start making too much money outside of their system, it's a problem. And that's the gag. If we don't own it, then we can't control it. And if we can't control it, then who's feeding us the messages? Who's telling us this type of situation? You got Stephon Marbury, right? Famous basketball player who played overseas as well as in the NBA. And he said, you know what? I'm going to go to China. He went to China, and he went to the same factories that manufactured Nike. Now, you see all these people talking about tariffs in China and the blah, blah, blah. But he went to the same factories that made Air Force Ones and got them to make a sneaker that was the same quality as Air Force Ones. He did a deal with a company called Stephen Barry's, and he sold them for $15. And automatically, the machine went out to tell all the influencers, to tell all the black people, that's corny. We ain't wearing no $15 sneaker. Because he would have disrupted an industry. What they do, they said Stephon Marbury's crazy. Tory Lanez. Now, you can feel however you want to feel about Tory Lanez, but I deal in facts. I call balls and strikes. And from a business perspective, Tory Lanez did in this decade what Prince was doing in the 90s, which is completely circumventing the system and selling his album digitally direct to consumer. And he made $1 million in about 10 minutes. And everybody lost their minds. Now, all of a sudden, Tory Lanez is off in jail. Off in prison, let me be specific. And then Tory Lanez's father was like, Jay-Z, you bop, 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 bop. And I love Jay-Z as a rapper. I also like some of his business moves, but let's keep it a buck. Whenever something's going well for black people, or whenever black people start to uprise, who they call? They call Jay-Z. We know what the know what the kneeling was for, right? we know what the marching was for, right? It's the right. And then he neutralizes the situation. When LeBron James was going to lead a strike for the bubble, the call went up, and Obama called LeBron.
Come on, preach. You preaching
that's not by design. Oh, and I break all this down in the book because we don't own a culture that has been created. What you see right now, to your point, Megan Thee Stallion. Listen, my wife. All respect to my wife. My wife knows I love Megan Thee Stallion up until yesterday. I can't mess with her because yesterday she stood on that stage. And I saw it yesterday. I don't know if it was just probably a few days before, but she stood on the stage and received an award for Planned Parenthood. If it was not for Margaret Sanger's deadly eugenic Planned Parenthood, there'd be 40 million more Black people in America running things, right? The reason that Black women, when by and large, and I'm not speaking for Black women, but from a statistical standpoint, and everything in this book has been fact checked by independent third parties, and there is a section in here. It's chapter. I think it's chapter 11. It's called Receipts and References. So you can pull down what I say, what interviews I talk about, down to the second. She went on a stage for Planned Parenthood and said, yeah, I'm going to use my platform so that Black women have reproductive rights. Oh, so you're going to use your platform to talk about, having doulas and holistic healthcare, to start support of having medical schools prioritize, health conscious, holistic OBGYN care, doulas and birthing centers, to talk about the structure and the danger of vaccinations. We're going to talk about the fact that I have yet to meet one Black woman. Now, this is anecdotal, but I have yet to meet one Black woman who has had one or multiple abortions who did not have reproductive complications later on in life. And then we're not even going to talk, since we care so much about Black women and their reproductive issues, then can we talk about the connection between relaxers and fibroids? Oh, you didn't mean that. You meant that you just wanted to make sure that Black women went to the vacuum doctor, because in every hood, there is a Planned Parenthood or some type of abortion clinic, but there's no fertility clinics in the hood. To quote Umar Johnson, you don't find that suspicious?
You don't find that suspicious. Just to piggyback on what you said, Malcolm X says the media is the most powerful entity on earth. They have the power to make the innocent guilty and to make the guilty innocent. And that's power, because they control the minds of the masses. What people don't even understand is, this is something I've been dealing with too, Dave, if I can be honest and transparent. How in the hell do you combat a 500 plus year condition on your people? Like the media, I mean, even from a creative standpoint, I look at, folks looking at us now. We got some movie producers and writers. I'm a writer myself, but you have movie producers and writers, and we look at this as some form of elevation in making it. When I'm like, I don't want to say when they, here's what I want to say.
Take your time.
We combat a system that has been indoctrinated in us for 500 plus years. Like, for example, how do you get your children to not care about the $200 pair of Nikes? How do you get your children to say, I don't care about, what's happening. I don't care about Jay-Z. I'm going to compete on another level. I'm going to do the math. I'm going to be the surgeon. I'm going to be, the engineer. I'm going to do the logistics. I'll create. How do we combat this system if we are also fully participants in it?
Well, here's the thing. My favorite book says, be ye not conformed to this world, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Right? Either my daughters, no, I'll get them anything. You want $200 pair of Nikes, daddy will get it. That way, ain't no man out here going to buy you. Right? So you don't find yourself peed on at a freak off you don't want to be at.
Oh,
for 10 years. and then cry victim. And by the way, I want to answer your question, but I want to divert for a minute because I got to touch on this. All of a sudden, y'all care about Diddy abusing women, but where was this when he was abusing Kim Porter? Oh, wait, she's unmistakably Black. Where was this when he was abusing, allegedly, Misa Hilton Brim, his other baby mama? Oh, that's because she's unmistakably Black. But this one who's kind of Black, Ventura, kind of Black, sort of Black, not really Black, sort of Black, yeah, half Black, maybe Black, not foundational, but Black. Now all of a sudden y'all care. Now all of a sudden it's a problem. Stop. They tell you who to be outraged at. They tell you who to be mad at. And he ain't had no problems until he sued Diageo for racism, because he wanted the same type of love that George Clooney was getting. And that doesn't mean that he's not a despicable man. Trust me, I know for a fact that he is. However, I call balls and strikes, because you got no problem with a man being despicable as long as he's a Democrat and as long as they tell you he's okay. Because what Bill Clinton did to a young lady who was much, much younger than her in the Oval Office, the most sacred office in this land, if you believe in this yet to be United States, you ain't had no problem then, did you? Because y'all still love Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton show up, y'all coming out in droves. Black people will flood the streets to see if Bill Clinton will put his mouth on a saxophone. But how do you combat it? Here's how you combat it. You don't make it their God.
We worshiping it, right? We're praising it.
We have so many guys. We are the most polytheistic people I've ever met in my life. Because first of all, we worship the NBA, we worship the NFL, we worship rap artists, we worship these so-called entrepreneurs who are on reality television, who you never see. How is it you got a boutique in the mall and you have an entire fight in this mall and not one person is arrested?
Exactly.
Oh, okay, cool. But as a person who's worked on reality television, I can tell you firsthand, media stands for, my good friend Maj Toure said this, media stands for most effective devil in America, because it makes you believe that what you're seeing is real. But what you don't realize, and as a writer, you should understand this, reality television does not require writers, but they have them. They're called story editors. Reality television doesn't require sets. All you need is a bunch of cameras. For 2.5 decades, the show Cheaters was fake, but you bought into it because you believed it. Now, I'm not saying that some of them people wasn't acting, because some of them wasn't, but the majority of them people, they was acting. And so let me explain this to you. When you realize that there's something bigger, right? The problem is most parents out here raising children are absolute hypocrites. Because you tell your child that they can be anything that they want, but you never pursued your dreams. You never went out here and bet on yourself. You talked about what you was going to do. You talked about that business you were going to do. You're like Brian Griffin on Family Guy. And Stewie comes up to say, "Hey, you're gonna write a book now? What happened with the book? You're gonna do the book? What happened to the book?" So kids will be what they see. My child has my youngest child, she has no knowledge of me singing background. She has very little knowledge of me being a radio personality or a media executive. She didn't see any of that. So, my wife would be like, "Yo, this is one of Daddy's records," or, "This is when Daddy was doing it." "Oh, stop it, Mommy. Daddy's a businessman. What are you talking about?" Kids will be what they see, but you're not giving them anything to look up to. So if they don't get it at home, they're going to find it out there. So again, you serving them up.
I had to
bring up give them the definition. I'm sorry, I hit him with $1,000 word. I tend not to do that. The only big word in this book, I promise you, the only big word in this book that I didn't realize a lot of Black people didn't know was COINTELPRO.
Really?
Yeah, I'm surprised. I've done major shows and people are like, "Yeah, the word I couldn't understand in your book was if I say this wrong, tell me, Kyle and COINTELPRO." They had no idea, because we're not having that conversation. And that's the other thing Black people need to get on. You want to talk about culture? Here's the thing. I'm gonna ask you, Madam President, as if you're the avatar for the audience right now. We do understand that the majority of schools in America run on a curriculum that is funded and derived not only from the U.S. Department of Education, but from their state and local standards when it comes to education. Correct? We're clear on that. Right? And so we're the same people that will say that the government is corrupt. Correct? Okay. So if the government is corrupt and we're sending our children to a corrupt government-run school, and not only that, we expect the corrupt government-run school to teach Black people about the history. Oh Lord, they're taking the Black history out of the school because you're too lazy to teach it. Because if you knew anything about who you were, you would never let your enemy teach your child. What sense does that make? And don't sit up here and buck up at me. Don't buck up at me, because my whole thing is, if you don't have that smoke for your white boss, I don't want to hear anything you got to say. If you got to ask your white boss if you can take time off to see your kids play or their game or their recital, you are shameful. Even Dr. Claude Anderson, no relation but all respect, says you ought to be ashamed of yourself if your child has to look for employment outside of your own house. So, yeah, that's why everything is more powerful and everybody outside of your house gets more respect in your house than you do. That's why LeBron got posters up, but your kid's not bragging on what mommy did last week. You You've created that. And then don't speak to me about how many screens they're on. Don't speak to me about how much time they're spending on their video games, how much time they're spending unsupervised on YouTube. Because last I checked, iPhone, iPod, iPad, I paid. You did
Yeah.
that. You the pusher. If they're hooked on this drug that you call media and screen time, you're the dealer. You the connect. You literally are the Scarface of your child's undoing.
Mm. So I
But
remember in the book, he says that single parent Black households are now over 70%, a direct result of systemic policy shifts from the 60s. I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
I know for a fact my grandmother on my father's side, she told me that I asked her a few things. I noticed a couple things about my grandparents. My grandmother, she worked for the city of Chicago when she was alive, and she retired with the city of Chicago. So she was, and my grandfather, he was a truck driver. But I could tell that, they were not welfare recipients. They didn't, get no aid, no help, no food stamps. Not to brag, I'm just saying that was not the story. But my grandmother on my father's side, she was a woman who lived in a subsidized housing space, potentially food stamps. I don't know. I'm a little kid. I just come over there and play with dough, So all that to say that one day I asked her, I said, grandmother, why didn't you get married? Or, she said, well, it wasn't about getting married. She said, but, I had an old man. This is my grandmother talking. She said, I had an old man, but they couldn't live in the building. That's what she said. In order for us to have housing, the man couldn't live in the building. And I just remember reading that as well, reading the infrastructure of that was the prerequisite. If you want us to take care of your housing, then you can't have a man in the house. Isn't that catastrophic? And then I look at Black folks, and I have to just tag you in on this, Dave, because what you get a chance to see is they on the podcast now talking about it when it was already in place 50 years ago for you to get to this point, to not rely on one another. You think you have some kind of self-discovery. This is by design, brother and sister. This is not you ain't come up with this. You ain't just started, I don't want no woman in my house. I don't want no man in my house. This is a design.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so a few things. The first thing I want to touch on is, listen, we have been hit with what I like to call the babyface agenda. I'll pay your rent. I'll buy your clothes. I'll feed your children too. Just don't have a man in the house. And it still goes. So now, the same way in Latin, there's a phrase when it comes to your children. When you send your child to a school, it's in loco parentis, which translates roughly into in place of the parent, meaning that they're the parent from 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. You have no say over your child. They are your child's parent. You give up your parental rights from 7 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon in all 50 of these states. In loco parentis, look it up. It's on the books, right? So if we understand that the babyface mentality is you don't need them, right? Like this is a whole operation. Gloria Steinem, right? Who so many folks, including Black women to their own detriment, love to talk about feminism, the mother of feminism. No. Feminism was a man's creation at the Central Intelligence Agency. Explain to me what business, and again, Google it if you got nothing better to do. I'm taking all comers and I ain't ducking no smoke. Explain to me why the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States at one point was run by George Herbert Walker Bush. Explain to me why they would invest in a woman who wanted to tell women that they need to go into the workforce. Well, I'll answer the question for you. Number one, she was a CIA agent. She can call it whatever she liked, but she was a special agent. And then she went and got a Black woman so that she can then go and then write the message to Black women to say that you're not Black first, you're a woman and you don't need that man. But you know what that does automatically, damn near overnight, in less than a decade, to be specific? It doubles the amount of taxes the federal government can then collect because you got women in the workforce. Black people were 74% married. We were the most productive individuals. We were the most married individuals. We were the most together individuals. Divorce rates were unheard of. Teenage pregnancy, it didn't happen. And if and it did, your kid went down south, had the baby, came back up, finished school, became an adult, established themselves, got married, and then brought the baby up. How do I know? Because my big brother, right? My mother was married before she married my father. My big brother's father was one of those oops babies. And he didn't get to meet my brother's grandmother. He didn't get to meet his mother until he was much, much older. And didn't know that that wasn't his mama. Didn't know that was his mom. So we had a different mindset. And they said, oh, we got to break this up. J. Edgar Hoover, who was closeted and allegedly partially black, hated himself and hated us so much that he said two things. Number one, the greatest threat to America is black unity. The second greatest threat to black America is the rise of another black messiah. So we got to break all this up. So you got the CIA working against us. You got the FBI working against us. You got the media working against us. Who's for us? Not us. Because when we do things and we say these things, we're corny. Byron Allen ain't nobody's top choice for dating, but you love Idris because he's British, right? We have what I call the ONAT rule, which is the one Negro at a time rule. So one Negro at a time. From the 80s until just recently, it was Denzel. Now it's Michael B. Jordan. Now we had other people in between, but we had to take them out. Like Nate Parker got taken out for something he got found not guilty of in a court of law. But you know why that was? Nate Parker made the stupid mistake of selling Birth of a Nation to Fox Searchlight instead of selling it to Byron Allen because Byron Allen wasn't sexy enough. Do you see how it works? And so we continue to work against each other and create the strong and independent stuff. You got all these morons out here, you know, who got their pants hanging off their behinds or their boobs shoved up to their neck, talking these think pieces, you know, in a podcast studio. Where we are denigrating each other. I don't see white folks doing that to each other. I've seen white folks say, "Hey, listen, if you're such a modern woman, I'm not going to marry you." But you never hear him say, "Oh, well, you know, white women are the worst. I'll never date a white woman." You don't hear this talk. And then there was a time my grandfather had a 6th grade education and raised 8 kids. And here's the thing: there was a time when working at a plant or working as a postal worker or being a teacher was success. Being a trash man, being on a job that had a union and a pension was honorable. Not now. Oh, he got Pop the Balloon, R.I.P. Kevin Samuels, all these shows. He got to make 6 figures. Okay, so you've just eliminated 93% of the black male population. Good job, numbnuts. You're fighting against your own interests. You want your man to make 6 figures? Go ahead and make 50,000. Get your man up to 50,000. Boom, you got 6 figures collaboratively together. I'm sorry, you had a question?
No, I was just going to say that that's one of the issues that I see pretty frequently is that, you know, the lack of ability to work together. Like you say, once you decide that, oh, this person doesn't make 6 figures, you know, then it's like, but what do you need it for? You don't even have all of you saying that he needs to make money so that we can consume. You're not even saying he needs to make money because I want a house full of kids and I want all of us to be able to eat and I want us to be, it's just all you want to do is consume. You want a man to make money so you can give it to Gucci? That doesn't make sense. You want a man to make money so you could, wear designer clothes? That does not make sense. That does not feel like progression to me. And what bothers me is, you are going to be the one carrying the children that everyone's after, so the money's supposed to be in a space where, we have some sense of liberation. And like you said, not indoctrination, but liberation. But you won't even liberate with it. All you're going to do is give it to them. So it's like, what's the point? Why are you even? And this is one of the issues that I feel so deeply about, Dave, because I see a lot of young men who struggle with identity. And I see a lot of young girls who are being molded to reject the young men. Why would you be looking at a 21-year-old man demanding that he has $1 million? That's a disconnect, but looking at the if you're looking at the rap industry and that's your premise, then Dave, what is happening there?
Oh, well, let me break it down. I don't know. Have you been to Houston?
Not recently, no.
Well, one of my favorite One of my favorite preachers preached a sermon back in 2005, and it has stuck with me ever since because it literally talks about the way that we're conditioned, especially in our communities, and not exclusively to our communities, but to our detriment more than any other community that I've seen and experienced. And the title of the sermon was "Back Then They Didn't Want Me. Now I'm hot, they all on me." See, here's the gag, right? When I was the kid sitting in, and this ain't me being bitter because I got the woman I dreamed of. Like, I'm good, but I state facts. Whether those facts serve me or not, it's a fact. Sitting in the library during my lunch period, reading books, so on and so on. Oh, he's a nerd. He's this. He's that. He's this. He's that. You know what everybody says now, man. I always knew you was gonna make it. That's how it goes. See, I'm dope now. I wasn't dope in the 90s. I was moderately dope in the 2000s. I ain't gonna hold you, but that's because I had a cool job. Right. You know what I'm saying? What happens with us is we have replaced integrity with internet status. We have replaced love for likes. We have replaced purpose with popularity. Woo! We have replaced intellect with influence. That's the problem. So if you're telling young women, and they've been doing this way before the internet, and I'll prove it to you. What's the song? Ain't nothing going on but the rent. Yeah. You got to have a J-O. That's how it started. And then when my oldest daughter was born, a scrub is a guy that thinks he's fine, who's also known as a buster. Hold on, wait. You don't want no scrub, but you broke. You're the brokest R&B group in the face of history. You got by the same people who watch this. You got by the same people who invented freak offs, and I ain't talking Diddy. You got by the same people who partied while Whitney Houston was drowning in a bathtub. You got by the same people who taught your manager and your producer to rob you blind. But you got nerve to talk about scrub. Who the scrub? This is what we do. And so if the standard is the only thing a black man is good for is paying for you, right? If you go out here and the only people who got money is Pookie and Lamondre, and Pookie is out here, slinging crack rock or whatever, then you're going to love Pookie. You're going to get pregnant by Pookie. You're going to have Pookie's baby. And then you're going to be on the internet talking about, wait for it, #stepdaddy season. Because now you're Afghanistan. Because your value has gone down and you've been bombed out and depleted. Now, if you have been taught that these women don't want nothing from you other than what you can provide, you're going to go out here and try and provide it any way you possibly can because they don't want you for your looks. They don't want you for your conversation. What did Jocelyn Hernandez say? I only want you for your connections and your beef kick. And trust me, I had this conversation with my wife just the other day. I said, if I'm being honest with you, I don't like my youngest daughter says, Daddy, I hate it when you go on business trips, meaning when I'm going out to do press, promoting things like the Real Black Agenda, available in fine bookstores right now or in the link in my bio. Sorry, I love the shameless plug. She said, I don't like when you go on business trips. And I said, baby, well, Daddy don't have no job. So this is how Daddy makes money. And my wife says, I'm gonna lie to you. It's hard when you leave. And I said, it's hard for me too. I said, you know what my heart is? And I think this is the first time I ever verbalized it like this. I said, inside of here, I know everybody in this house loves me because of who I am. You knew me when I was 17, I didn't have a damn thing. I can stand on that. I know that this one don't give a good damn if I don't sell another book, if I never become famous, if I never become mainstream. She don't care about none of that. She just wants her daddy. Out there, the second I step out here, somebody knows that one of these quotes is going to go viral. Somebody knows that they can pick my brain. Somebody sees 1.3 billion or whatever it is that my clients have generated over a 2-decade span, and they want a piece of it. My DMs are filled with people, business owners who want me to, sit down with them for a minute and help them figure out because they'll pay Gary Vee for the same. Gary Vee's a good friend of mine, love him to death, but they'll pay Gary Vee for the same information they want to get from me for free. I know when I step out of here, they want the product, not the person. They want the bully. They don't want Dave. I've created a monster because nobody wants to see Marshall no more. They want Shady. I'm chopped liver. So if you want Shady, this is what I'll give you.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we gotta understand that the trap has been set to keep us diametrically opposed. You know, and then you
Yeah,
say, oh well, if this older man wants a younger woman, yeah, because you spent all your time getting all these degrees and saying he wasn't no good, he was corny, he was this, that, and the third. So when he makes his money, which most successful black men, if you deem success by a financial metric, don't start hitting that till they 45 bare minimum,
I
unless they
was
rap.
Dave, I was telling a couple friends of mine that, so some of the things that I've noticed with some of my friends is we're 40. I'll be
Mhm,
40 this year. Some of my friends, they're already 40, and some
mhm.
are a little bit under 40. So
Yes,
when we're
ma'am.
talking about romance, the first thing I'm saying is, yeah, these are young men. They have to make money. They're not going to be able to, you know, this is one of the things that I think Kevin Samuels was saying, that I'm not saying that I was a Kevin Samuel stan. I didn't watch a
Facts
lot
are
of his.
facts, no matter where they come from.
I agree, but what I will say is I think we were missing the mark because he was saying it sometimes and it wasn't nice. But what I believe he was saying is same thing that you're saying. When we're
Mhm,
caught up in the matrix, we're
mhm,
not understanding that the person to our right and our left is our only option. That's number one.
mhm,
We got too many women who are under this impression that they got a lot of options.
mhm,
And the reality is your only option is what's in front of you.
mhm,
So you have degraded, disrespected, and demeaned the
mhm.
people who have found you most interesting
Yeah.
to go and, try to connect
Mhm.
with imaginary people that don't exist. So that's number
Right.
one. You're really putting yourself in a spiral position.
Mhm.
Number two, when he said that, have you been taught to be a wife? Guess what? I realized that we've had to learn everything that we know. We
Mhm.
had to learn how to drive. We had to learn how to get these degrees on the wall. We
Mhm.
had to learn that subject matter and prove to the professor that you know what you
Mhm.
have regurgitated, right?
Correct.
The information. But when it comes to love, who really taught us? When it comes to working together, who really taught us? When it
Mhm.
came to learning how to manage your emotions, not lashing out. You already know. You grew up in the black households, boy. They would, man. Let me tell you something. Do not. A sister would curse your mama out, okay? Like
In the New York Minute.
in the New York Minute. So the reality is, love is one of the deeper emotions
Mhm.
that we will travel through. And then and then we've learned that we haven't been taught. So
Mhm.
then you come to an age, probably by the time you're 25 to 30, you start to realize, oh shit, there's something going on in here. I got to fix some things
Mhm.
if I'm really have a quality love life. Now, some
Yes.
people just get lucky, they get a high school sweetheart and
Mhm.
and have a happily ever after and kind of
Sure.
work together. I
Sure.
believe wholeheartedly that, I don't believe in the stigma that you're born alone. I believe in togetherness. And I also believe that the idea that you're born in this world alone, you're supposed to die alone, is false. You're
Mhm.
born in this world through the push of someone else.
Mhm.
That's one, that somebody carried you. So
Yes.
you got unity through
Mhm.
the womb and through birth. Even if your mother was rejecting you, she still had to deliver on you.
That
You
part.
so that's one of the things that I think about us deeply from a
Mhm.
cultural standpoint,
Yeah.
and we've gone a lot. Talking to you is just so phenomenal. We've gone a lot longer than I even had planned. But
I'm
I,
sorry. I like to talk.
me too. But I'm just saying, like, nobody taught us how to love,
Mm-mm.
and we're getting it wrong. And
Yeah.
now you this money thing. Everybody wants you to have all this money, and it's like we don't even know where to spend the money yet. You don't
No.
even know how to maximize the funds that has come in the house. You
No.
men need encouragement. Some women need encouragement. So that means that y'all can be coming in the house, and I'm gonna give you the mic, Dave. But I
Mhm.
want to do this really quickly. My parents, I like to say, my mother had me at 15, so
Mm.
I come from a teenage mother. My
Mm.
father was 18. I come from a teenage father.
Mm.
My mother told me that my father was happy about me being born. Even as an 18-year-old, he was happy about the responsibility. Probably didn't know what it was, but he was glad, like, oh, snap. My grandmother called my father and said, hey, she's in labor. And he came to the hospital.
Yes.
This is a teenager. My
Yes.
parents were teens. They
Mhm.
were already, and
Right.
this is, I don't know, just thinking about this is probably why I'm a loved individual. I'm a person of love, because I
Mhm.
was born with it. My grandmother, my grandfather were all waiting on me. I was a community baby. All that to say that my
Mhm.
grandmother lived in the house, my grandfather, my two aunties, and my uncle and my mother. We all lived in
Mhm.
the house. I tell
Right.
people I come from a 2-parent household. I come from a 5-parent household.
Amen.
Everybody was raising me, telling me what to do, where to go, and how to
Yes.
mind myself, and how to
Right.
speak to grown folks, and how to have personality, and how to tell a joke, and how to do a dance. And my
Mhm.
grandmother, soft and nurturing. Here, come sit here. What's going on? What's wrong?
Yeah.
All that to say that they went and worked every day. Everybody would go out and go to work. I would go to school. And I'm mystified, wondering why nobody was coming home talking about business.
Mm. Oh, well, I can tell you because here's the thing: if you are focusing on survival, you don't
Mm,
have time to have those conversations. I
mm,
was blessed, and I'm going to tell you my experience is in some ways very similar but very different. Okay, now I can tell you, my father was born in 1935. My mother
mm-hmm,
was born in 1946. So
mm,
my mother is older. I'm sorry, my youngest aunt on my mother's side is older
mm-hmm.
than my mother-in-law.
Okay. Okay.
So like there's a different dichotomy. I speak a lot older than a lot of people who are like I'm almost 50, but when I was a kid I talked like this. Because I was around older people. You
Mm-hmm,
know what I'm saying? Like eh, for me, my situation was my father, who was a cop and then went to other forms of law enforcement, took his money and bought a corner store in the hood. My father lived in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. My mother lived in Philadelphia. My parents divorced when I was 3.
okay.
But they loved each other. They were just too stupid to make it work,
Mm-hmm,
because a lot of times we get sold this dream of what marriage is. I'm still learning how to be a husband.
mm,
Every day, I'm still learning how to be a husband. I'm still learning how to be a father because the way that I raised Dory, who's my oldest, is different than how I raised Devlin, who's my youngest, because there's
mm-hmm,
different needs. You know,
mm-hmm,
Dory was very creative, very cerebral. Devlin is very creative in a different way. And then she's mildly autistic. So you have all these other things going on. You're living and you're learning, right? Love in and of itself means letting our vision evolve. That's what
mm-hmm.
love means, letting our vision evolve. Our vision, not my vision. Because if it was
Mm-hmm.
my vision, listen, we'd be sitting here watching WWE and eating pizza all day. We've got to get ourselves to a point where we realize this is a collective and we're all learning. Even the Bible says, and they shall become one flesh. The Bible don't say, and they lived happily ever after,
Mm.
right? We
Yeah.
buy into all of these constructs that are not real. And we wonder why we're so disjointed and so all over the place. And the truth of the matter is, yes, technically, you might come out the womb by yourself because you come individually, but you're either welcomed into a situation. But when people say they die alone, for me, it means that every choice that I make, I'm going to have to answer to God for good, bad, and indifferent. And God knows I have made some colossal mistakes. And I thank God every single day that I get an opportunity to make it right. I thank my wife for sticking by me. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm not the easiest person to get along with. I like things a certain way. The reason I didn't work in corporate media was because I wasn't going to sit back and let you do things like have a March Madness ass bracket contest at the expense of Black women. And so I'm gonna
Mm.
speak up about that. Even though there's other Black people in the room, they were more worried about their job than their self-respect and their dignity.
Mhm.
I say all that to say we have to understand that this demon that we're fighting on several fronts. And the last place we need to be fighting is in the bedroom, is in our households, is in our churches. And we got to stop letting everybody come into our situation. Do you think it's an accident that the Black church has been nullified and turned into a commercial situation? Or did you not pay attention to the fact that there's these things called, wait for it, faith-based initiatives? You know, the first letter of each one of those words is FBI. But what
Really?
happened to this? Yeah, faith-based initiative, FBI.
Mm-hmm.
Also, keep in mind that we're supposed to have a separation of church and state. So why is the government giving churches money? And why is it that when somebody's running for president or for Congress, the first thing they do is they go to a black church
You
and they
know
come
it.
in and they clap off, beat Joe Biden, look like he was lost. And God bless Joe Biden right now. God, look out for that man because he's battling cancer. But as a son of a man who had Alzheimer's and dementia, I knew that dude was off because I saw my father go through it.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to understand that the church has nullified its ability to be effective in our lives, but they keep on growing. They keep on growing. And they got the ATM in the sanctuary, and $38 million a week goes into the black church alone. That is a statistical fact. You can Google it for yourself when you ain't got nothing better to do. But our communities are in shambles. We don't own nothing. But it's funny how everybody tells us that there's no money in the hood. But yet and still, there's a Chinese laundromat. There is a Chinese restaurant. There is an Indian or an Ethiopian Dunkin' Donuts. There is a KFC, a McDonald's, a Taco Bell, a Wendy's, a Burger King, but no Whole Foods.
Mm.
So if there's no money in the hood, why are they putting so many businesses there? Oh, because they're not black owned, but they sure enough are controlling black people. My friend, and
Yeah.
I'll give you back your platform after this. My friend, the late great Dr. Julia Hare, said the problem with black people isn't a lack of black leaders; it's too many leading blacks.
Mm.
And the leading blacks are going exactly where their white handlers are telling you to go. And
Mm.
that's the problem. You know, to us, we keep waiting for a palm-colored solution to a black fist problem.
Mm.
We keep looking for them to save us when we don't save us. Here's the gag. You want to talk about the things that are really killing black people aside from abortions? Aside from the drug epidemic, which the majority of us are not drug addicts or drug dealers. You know what's killing us? Type 2 diabetes, high blood
Mm.
pressure, heart attacks, all of that type of stuff. Do you know what Alzheimer's is called in every other country except the United States?
No, what is it?
Okay. So, type 1 diabetes you're born with, right? That's sugar in your blood. Type 2 diabetes you develop because you have too much sugar in your blood and your ability to produce insulin is a problem. Type 3 diabetes is what you call Alzheimer's and dementia. It's sugar on the brain.
Mm. You know, a friend did tell me that probably some time ago, but that is exactly what it is. So let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
Say, for instance, you're a person who you're in tune with your body, and you have those moments where you got sugar on the brain at night, you can't sleep, agitated. You know, is that just like probably too much sugar intake in general too?
Well, there's two things. There's sugar, and again, I'm not a doctor, so please don't take this as medical advice. There's two things. Number one, you're probably dehydrated. Well, there's three things. One, you're probably dehydrated, so drink as much water as you possibly can. Number two, you are eating something bad, right?
Okay.
And I used to be 561 pounds, so I'm not coming in here telling people, from a place of, I've never lived this. Like, I was a 7X shirt.
Wow.
I had a 72-inch waist, right?
Wow.
So when I tell you, oh, Boogie, I get it. But the other thing that you need to keep in mind is that we're constantly dealing with stress. We're stressed on our job. We're stressed when we walk outside. I am the son, brother, and nephew of cops. And anytime red and blue lights flash behind me when I'm driving, I'm like, is this the day that I die? I got pulled over because my Easy Pass broke. I didn't realize that my Easy Pass had broken, which is like the toll thing. I don't know if y'all have that in Georgia, but my Easy Pass had broken and it wasn't ticking, and I didn't know. Like, I'm not doing that. I'm busy living my life. I paid a bill, whatever. And so my registration had gotten suspended as a result. And I paid my registration 2 years at a time. So I was like, what is he talking about? He's like, yeah, it's your Easy Pass. He said, you didn't know. I'm going to write the ticket. You come to court. As long as you pay off whatever your Easy Pass bill is, you're good money. My daughter was like, Daddy, why is he stopping us? I said, and my wife says immediately, when a cop is here, you be quiet. You put your hands where we're having this talk with our going on 10-year-old on the fly while the cop is running my registration to make sure I don't have any warrants.
Mm-hmm.
Now the
Wow.
good news is, my late brother was a cop here in Philly. He's, like, I've yet to meet a cop in Philly who don't know my brother, God rest his soul. If I
Mm-hmm.
can run into a jam, I can call somebody. I'm real
Right.
good friends with the head of city council. I know the mayor. Like, I can, unless I murdered somebody, I'm pretty safe.
Right.
I'm good. But in that moment, am I able to reach for my phone? And like that fear, we're constantly up against that fear. So it's either sugar, dehydration, or the PTSD from just living as a black person in America. And that doesn't mean we're victims, but it does mean that we're constantly in a state of what's next, what's coming. We're waiting for the other shoe to drop. That stress increases cortisol. Cortisol increases belly fat. So you couple that with ham hocks, chitlins,
Sure.
Cheetos, whatever else we're eating that we ain't got no business eating, because it's
Right.
killing us from the inside out. I was digging my own grave with a knife and fork, and I thank God that I made some different choices. Because the last thing I want is for my wife to be on the internet sitting up here talking about stepdaddy season. Not that she would, but I ain't gonna give her the option. You feel
Right.
me? Because I'm
Right.
trying to be here. And
Right.
this is the first out of 22 books. This is the first time I ever put myself on a cover, because it's the first time I've never been ashamed of the way that I look.
Wow. That's big. Let me give you a round of applause for that. Come on,
Listen,
clap.
I'll take that. But
Well,
yeah,
with
no, we got to get it together.
I appreciate that. We're over an hour on the segment, and I am grateful. I got so much gratitude. You got to promise me that we can do this again. We can't make this time be the last time. And then, I got to get with you because I want to grow too in my business, and I got to figure out how. So you're the guru. I'm glad to have your information, and I pay. I'm not one of those people who want things for free. So
Listen, I
I
will take
want
your money. No. But can I say something to you?
Yes,
I'm
please.
gonna say something to you. First, I honor you for having me on this platform. I'm always happy to speak to everybody. And people say, "Well, how did you do this? How did you come from one industry where everybody knew you and basically kicked you out to another industry where you had to build yourself up?" And I said yes to everything. As long as it wasn't illegal, I said yes to it. I don't say no. When you reached out to me, I said, "Sure. When do you want to do it?"
You
I
sure did.
believe if we have more conversations where it's not quid pro quo, where you're not trying to, pick my brain or any of that other nonsense, if we're just having conversations like, as a brother to a sister, I think it's so important that we talk about things, even if we don't agree on everything. I don't learn anything in a bubble. We got to be okay with doing that, because we will welcome everybody into our circle with open arms. The biggest mistake black women ever made in America was allowing non-black people to come in, show them the hair care industry, and let them run with it. Show non-black people how to do what we now call network marketing, which was created by Madam C.J. Walker. Like we give away our game for free, and then when somebody who looks like you charges for that game, then it's, oh, well, you just can't help black people out. Do you have any
Right.
idea how much we help ourselves? How many people I help for free? How many? I'm not out here broadcasting it because I'm not trying to get accolades and awards for it. We got to stop looking at each other as an enemy and start looking at each other as what we are. We are our most valuable resource. Us. My good friend is a guy named Lavelle Crump, and then I'll shut up. Lavelle Crump is famously known to most people as David Banner. And I did a consult for a company in Missoula, Montana, and I came home with a real nice check. And aside from my wife, he's usually the first person I call. Like, yo, bro, I did this, that, because you need people who understand what you're going through. Because, like Al Sharpton said at Michael Jackson's funeral, what happened to your father, Michael Jackson, was strange. He wasn't strange. What do happen when you breathe rarefied air? The reason it's lonely at the top is because nobody understands, because they're not willing to do what it takes to get there. Ethically, spiritually, the whole nine. And he said, Dave, I'm happy for you, bro. I'm always cheering for you. but I'm sad. And I said, what you sad for, bro? I got the bag. He said, yeah, but I'm just sitting here thinking, if we had, if you had us, you'd never need them.
Mm.
And that's what I did. I said, It felt like, if you've ever met Debbie Banner or seen Debbie Banner, that's a strong dude. It felt like he punched me in the chest physically. It felt like it hurt my heart because he was right.
He was.
Why should I have to look to anybody outside of my own people? Why should I have to go on any platform outside of the ones for my people? Why should I have to, move? Like I wrote a book called The Real Black Agenda. You think CNN gonna have me on for this? Probably not. Trust me, we've talked. But my home is with you.
Yes, I appreciate that. But I also would like to say that, CNN and all these other, they always, what is their objective? Like what the Black family needs to understand, and for your book, The Black Agenda, everybody should have this in your home. If you got the Bible in your house, then you should have the Black Agenda in your house.
The real Black Agenda, because the Black Agenda was written by somebody who's not a foundational Black American. And notice the people who aren't foundational Black Americans, but you can't speak on a foundational Black American experience and create an agenda for a culture you don't live. If your main staple in your house is jollof rice, cool, but stay out of fish and grits conversations. This is a fish and grits conversation.
Absolutely. The real Black Agenda. Let me get
that.
The real, not the fake, not the play, the real. Okay, it's important that we get that right because we want you all to make sure that you get the actual real book. The real Black Agenda. We got 250 people in the building. Can you guys go ahead and start purchasing the book from Business Bully? You hear him. You hear this man speak. You know that he knows what he's talking about. You know that he's the real deal. And what you all don't understand is when Black people decide to be unapologetically Black, when they decide that their mission is to go after the progression, the liberation of Black people, then guess what? Do you know how many white folks would pay this man to be on their side, on their agenda?
You have any idea how many I've turned down?
That's what people don't even know, Dave. Like they don't even get a chance to have an insight. I had a company reached out to me during the election. They said, "Hey, we would like for you to do we see your audience, at the time probably had 30,000 followers." Mm-hmm. And they said, "Hey, can you do a pro women's choice promo?" I said, "Absolutely. No, thank you. Get somebody else to do it." And I would love to teach a lot of women that are in the industry, A-list celebs, just how to say no, thank you. Mm-hmm. You all don't understand. Nobody's trying to stop you from getting your bag, but you got to let the system know that, hey, I'm here to do the dance and the song. I'm not here to get your abortion award either. I'm not here for the other part. No, thank you. No, thank you will go a long way. Yeah. And they get us tied into everything. Well, you should do it. And let me just say this. The reason why they got us showing up all over the world for their events and their venues is because they're the business managers, they're the attorneys, they're the accountants, and they're everything behind the scenes. While you and your children you all are paying. You all pay the premium dollar to see every A-list celebrity. Meanwhile, your children can't even go outside without the potential of gunshots. Mm-hmm. So you all should have some form of standards. We should have standards as a community. They have standards. It's for them. I would just like to also say, Dave, I want you to have the floor and let the people know where they can find your book, go to, follow you. This is your moment.
All right. I appreciate it. Now, here's what I need you to understand. You can get the book on Amazon. It's available there. We also have the audio book. That's on Audible. I appreciate you, but I will tell you this. If you go to Instagram and you click the link in my bio and you get the book there, we have different packages with all types of really cool stuff and bonuses and incentives because we want to try. I use Amazon for what it is. It's a hub to distribute. That's it. But I sign each and every one of the ones that you get off of Instagram. Also, we have the Real Black Agenda comic book. We've got a workbook. We've got a journal. And for those of you who are spiritual and are Christian, we also have a devotional. This is not just a book. This is a moment that I'm praying will start a movement in the way that we think. And if you go right now to the Business Bully and you do that, not only that, we've got it set up where I can actually give you some coaching time if you have a business. We've got to start hedging our bets around our community. The way that we move, right? And the way that we used to move was because we had each other. My mother's mother, my grandmother, she said, I never really understood integration because we had black hotels. Every one of my babies, except your mother, because she was an emergency birth, was born in a black hospital with black doctors and black nurses. I ain't seen nobody white except for the white uniforms they wore in that hospital. Everybody was black. We had black butchers. We had black bankers. We knew exactly who was in our neighborhood. We knew the person who was cutting our grass and cutting our meat. We have gotten away from that, and everybody else has benefited from it. They take our rhythm, but they hate our blues. And if you want to stop having that wool pulled over your eyes, I need you to go to Instagram, click the link in my bio, and get the Real Black Agenda so that Mr. Anderson can pull you out of this matrix we call black culture.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it from Dave, the Business Bully. We appreciate him, Dave. We appreciate you. We love having you here. We want to see you next time. I'm going to get with you and get an actual schedule so that we can do this again soon. I appreciate you so much. I'm going to chat with you offline, but ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. We did an hour and a half today. We never do that.
I'm so sorry.
No, sorry. This was needed. All right, y'all. Have a good day.